Here we are.
I think this is where you go ahead and you say that intro. Let's hear it.
Oh my gosh, I don't have it with me.
You don't.
I didn't memorize it.
I copied and pasted it, and I have it here. So no worries, no worries.
I'm on the spot.
But here I'm gonna put my voice on there and see. So for welcome to EP 7. Traci Waldman Porte and
Traci Philips.
There you go. There you go. So Traci and I, we thought about the intro for this and said, hey, Traci, go ahead and write something. And I think I kind of put her on the spot here. She didn't. She emailed it to me, but I pasted it and I have it. So I'm going to say this thing that Traci wrote. And here we go. We're excited you have chosen to eavesdrop on us today, and hope this conversation provides insight and food for thought to help you live and lead more vitally and authentically. We believe in the power of voice and sharing your thoughts and ideas with the world. You can find us on the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month at 1 p.m. live Eastern Time on Facebook at Wulwyn Porte or Traci Waldman Philips. And as an outro that I will read at the outro time. Traci, how are you, sis? How are you?
I'm good. I am well. I am very well. How are you doing today? You're plugged in, aren't you? I can tell.
Oh, sis, you just don't know. I am. Before this started, and before we even press record, my hands were sweating, one, but more so the way my butterflies in my stomach, and as if I was going to Disney, right? Or planning a trip vacation or go back to Liberia or something exciting, right? So I'm excited. I think this is going to be one of these talks that will blow my mind. How are you?
Well, on that note, that's like, hey, let's see what happens. I'm feeling the same way. I was telling you before, I was like, normally I'm just really super excited. Like, I think I've said in the past, if I was a dog, I'd be wagging my tail, kind of thing.
Correct.
But this is the first time my hands are sweating too. It's like, and normally when my hands are sweating, I'm about ready to do something that scares me. And I'm like, oh, wow, what is that all about? So, this is what I love about these conversations. It comes through. It doesn't come from us. It comes through us. I think, that's how it feels to me. Is for whatever reason something will come to mind, and then we just start playing this game of tennis. So
that's true.
Yeah.
So how have you been the past week? Your highs, your lows, your in betweens. What's up?
My gray areas, right? I have, this is, okay, so let me see if I can describe this the best way I've been feeling it. Is that I'm gaining a new relationship with out of the box, right? With out of comfort zone, with the unknown, right? With change. Let's put it that way. I'm shifting my relationship with change. And I was having this conversation actually with a good friend of mine probably about a week ago, and she's like, asking the same question, how you doing? And I said, right now it's like everything feels out of my comfort zone at that point. I'm in conversations with publishers right now for my book.
Yeah.
Never done this before, so I'm like, I'm going back to my person, with the campaign manager who I've been working with. I'm like, okay, so how do I do? And he's like, you got this. And I'm like, oh, and even with my writing, which has always been a strong suit of mine, I've been submitting to this editor, some ideas, because I really want to sharpen up my writing piece, my writing sample that I'm sending these publishers.
Okay.
And, I'm used to just writing what's in me and done. Boom. I put it out there and either people like it or they don't, or that's me, right?
Correct.
This refinement piece, this, it keeps coming back. It's like, it's not developed enough. It's not developed enough. And I'm just like, oh, there's the ego. It's like, oh, it's not good enough. And then there's the part of me that's like, yes, this is growing me. This is pushing me to do something. But then I get to points where I'm like, well, I don't know what I don't know. So what do you mean? Like, how much more do I need to develop? In what way do I need to develop it?
Wow.
And so it's all been so fascinating to kind of, again, watch myself and feel myself going through this, because that, and also I'm being asked to do things I've never been asked to do before. I had a guy from WRAL just ask me literally 2 days before the event, could you put together this piece, for my sales team, on innovation. And so I'm putting together a slideshow and everything. And then he gets in touch with me just before and he's like, oh yeah, that 45 minutes that we were going to give you, I think I overbooked this thing. Can you do it in 20? I'm like, oh yeah, sure. So it's stretching me. That's how I feel, right? Long answer to a short question is, I feel like I'm developing a new relationship with stretch, with this. I don't know if this is good. I don't know if this is I don't know. I don't even know what I don't know. I don't know, any of this. And I think I've been using that statement probably more in the last couple of weeks than I have maybe in my lifetime.
Stretch, a new relationship with stretch. Wow. A relationship with change. Well, my week rather has been, my week has been great. Trying to develop a video, a VPod cast, is that what they call it, on inequities, right? For people to come and talk. I think we talked about that last week or 2 weeks ago. It's born out of what's happening. It's where we think it's one race. Yes, my house is burning now, but everybody's got inequities. And until we hear it, then we can have a total solution for it, right? Because when you fix one or put one under the rug, it still comes up in another form or fashion. Health, financial, education, just all these different things. So I'm working on that. I'm thinking I'm doing some branding. I think it's something we have to do here. We have to get some branded shirts, a T-shirt or a shirt with eavesdrop on there, right? And come on and just rock it on here. But that and I had a breakthrough client that, I'm not gonna say a gender because I don't want them to know who it is. I was about to say who she or he. I was like, no, say it. You don't want him to know. But he hollers, he calls me, and guess what? Did I say he?
We'll just edit that part.
They call me, and they say, man, you just don't know. Disappearing hand. You just don't know. I got a contract of $18,000, and I am looking like, what? 18? Then it hit me. Why not more? Right? Why not more? So I am engaging and changing and having this thing happen into somebody's life. And it's not because it's 18,000, but they're seeing a light, right? They're seeing a light. So my week has been, oh, wow. So this thing I'm doing, there's validation to it, right? But I hear you say stretch. I hear you say stretch. Something's telling me that that's going to be where we stick in the ground today, stretch. And when I hear stretch, elasticity, I think when I was doing as physics 101, or I think in high school, when we talked about elasticity, the theory or the concept of it, I was highly interested. I was like, okay, I know what that thing looks like. A rubber band, I know it. When you stretch it to a particular point beyond its normal um, stretch rate or whatever I would say, soon as it goes beyond that, when you put it back together, it can never go back to where it originally was. So there's a new normal for it. And but here's the thing, during that stretch, there's a stress that occurs. And when that stress occurs, you're going, oh my goodness, I can't stand this. I can't stand this. And I think looking at that stress, that's what the stress looks like. You going from 45 minutes to 20, you writing your various scripts, I think you said, to go and send to the editors or the publishers, right? For me, it's a new place in, COVID-19 for all of us, rather. It's knowing that I am abundantly blessed. I'm just blessed. Traci, I'm telling you, sis, I am just blessed. And when I say just blessed, and it's a new place for me, it's a stretch. It's a new place for me where I know my finances are, well, it's going to be good. Clients will come knocking on my door, and I speak that over you, right? That you are abundantly blessed. And even speaking to people who are listening, stretch yourself to get into that space where you say, gosh, I'm abundantly blessed, even if you don't see. Call things that be as though they were, right? So when you talk about stretching, Traci, tell me about your other stretch marks.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's that. So I love that you use that analogy because it's so true. It's like when we stretch things past capacity, it does leave a mark, right? So when we come back, we can see where that capacity beyond
Correct.
was pulled to. And so, and yet we can't go back, right? And so one of the things I found myself saying in a client session this morning was the thing about comfort zone is when you start to develop a new relationship with change and working outside the comfort zone, that when we go back, like, so this client was basically telling me this story. I mean, he went through some amazing stuff the last 2 weeks. I mean, just really stressful, like in both personal and professional, all in 2 week time period. And so when he was explaining to me kind of how he was managing all of this, he says, I finally then got, and all this stuff was just like, I'm like amazed. I'm like, you have definitely moved forward into things to be able to be so naturally authentic in these highly, almost traumatic moments.
Yep.
And then he says, but then I got to the end and I had this inner exchange with one of his clients. And he said, I found myself going back to old habits. Like, it's like here I had spent 2 weeks of in my power, out of my comfort zone, just making it happen. I mean, not that he was focused on that. He was focused really on getting through, but he was in alignment with his true authenticity and power. And then he says, only to come find this last thing that just happened a couple of days ago where I found myself sliding back in. And I said, well, what if it was so that you had, I said, well, how did you feel when you slid back? He goes, I was immediately aware. I said, well, what if that's why you slid back in? I mean, first of all, when we get tired and are stretched beyond, I mean, we do have limitations. I said, what you've been through in the last 2 weeks, that just created a cap on your limit. And then when this other thing happened, I said, you were tired. And I go, what happens when we're tired? We go back to old habits because we're just tired, right? We go offline, so to speak. And I said, but what's interesting to me is you're not telling me the story of it. You're telling me the awareness around it.
Correct.
That's what's different.
Correct.
You're not beating yourself up. You're not like, oh, and I was doing this and this and this and this, and I have to call to your attention that you stepped out of integrity. You are the one saying, I had this moment of realization of old habits and it didn't feel comfortable anymore. In other words, what I said to him is your comfort zone just became your uncomfort zone, your discomfort zone.
I get it. 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 So it's you said a word there that we want to, let's put a little stake there. Authenticity.
Earmark.
I know, earmark, authenticity. I want I want us to touch that word a bit because anyway, you so my my old reality, let me see if I heard this right. My old reality, my old comfort zone, because now I have developed a new one, that old one turns to be an uncomfortable place for me to be. Is that what you said?
Yes, because I think we're all at right now, whether we're aware of it or not, and how we're acting in it is different. But I think we've
Mhm.
all been, everybody keeps calling it the new normal. We've all been dragged into this new arena. Let's call it
Correct.
that.
Yeah.
And we've been dragged out of our comfort zones, right? Comfort zone was old normal.
Mm-hmm.
And so different people are reacting to that differently, but the people in your world and the people in my world, because of the nature of what we do, and therefore ourselves as well, because we get to be accountable to what we're helping others with,
Correct.
we're looking at this as, how do I get to embrace what is, right? How do I get to work with what is? Because you said something about finances. It's interesting, when we're out of comfort zone, we're in the natural flow of things, right? So where we were dragged out of our old comfort zone, we were dragged into this arena that's called flow, the universal flow of things. And although we're used to, controlling and manipulating and making things happen man style,
Yeah.
I love the quote, "Man plans, God laughs,"
Mm, mm,
because it kind of describes exactly what I'm talking about.
mm-hmm.
Is, it's like who is it says, like, you're mansplaining that to me. It's like this control thing of, like, you need to understand it a certain way.
Yeah.
That was our old operating pattern. Those were our systems. Those were everything ducks in a row. Everything needs to be a certain way. Everything
Yeah.
follows a certain protocol. And now that we got dragged into this new arena where we're needing to create new systems, they clearly can't be the way the old systems were. Otherwise, we would still be allowed to be in that space. We got
Mm,
dragged for a reason.
mm-hmm.
And I think that in this flow, we're either going to embrace not having expectations, not always knowing all the answers, not knowing how to do things perfectly. How do we establish a different relationship with that space without controlling it? Because some people are trying to, and it's failing miserably,
Yes.
right? You see some people trying to control certain things, and it is creating quite a ruckus.
Correct.
And so it's this piece of saying, when I'm in the flow, I'm not focused on the control. How am I going to make the money? Where is this coming from? Who's doing that? Who's responsible for this? It's sitting there in the moment and having things wash over us, right? Having experiences, because in actuality, we didn't come here to control things until we die. We came here to experience life. And when we're in the experience and we're focused on the experience and not the outcomes, right? The old way was very focused on the outcomes. This new way is embrace, or is welcoming us to experience the life we came to lead, right? Which means we have to let go of the control. We have to let go of the old systematic way of looking and expecting and all of that. And so we're developing this, how do I feel about that? How am I, and this client is operating really well in that space. So much so that when he fell back into the old space, he was like, whoa,
Correct. The
this does
discomfort.
not feel okay.
Correct. So wow, wow, wow. Okay, okay. So we came to experience life. We came to discover. And once we approach life with that mentality, I think the 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 shock, the shock and awe of that this is supposed to happen. That I saw this on a friend's, I think Ken Branson. He put a video. Do you know Ken?
I know
Ken?
Ken. Yeah,
Right.
I love
So
Ken.
Ken goes in, one way in, one way out. One way in, one way out. Ken, you when you hear Ken's story, you will understand that phrase. Those who are watching, Ken videotapes his son changing a tire. He's looking at he put the lug on, and he's trying to unwind, all of a sudden he changes his position. The same strength, the same machinery, same tire, but because the kid changes his position, boop, he gets a good, physics, right? He gets an angle that he can give more force, and he unwinds the lug. And when I saw it, I put in there, oh my goodness, perspective. A change in perspective does it all for you. Now, as we are walking, discovering, experiencing this life, as you stated, we have one perspective or a series of perspectives based off our past, and we want to engage this particular situation with that perspective or those perspectives, and this is how it's going to happen, and things are just button heads. What happens if we do as Kent's son and just pivot, as you had said earlier, we pivot slightly, get a better position, and then do the identical thing we're doing, but it's just a slight pivot. It's a different move that changes, a form that changes for the same function that we are operating on, and boom, breakthrough occurs.
Absolutely. We're approaching it differently.
Correct.
So if we think of different angle as a different approach, and when we approach things differently, we get a different experience, right? A different outcome, certainly, but we're experiencing it differently, yes. Right? Therefore, we're making a different story up. Therefore, we're choosing different actions that lead to different outcomes.
Correct.
Right? And again, that's one of the things that I've been asking is a question that, good Lord, I mean, anybody in the coaching field, anybody, who is been into even moderate levels of self-help is that you start with the why. I've been going back to that with clients so much this week, is that what is your why? What is your legacy? And I don't mean to the nth degree of how it needs to happen. It needs to look just like this. That's not what I mean. I mean, why are you here? What did you come to experience? What environments challenge and engage you? What things are you being called to? I mean, one of the things that's you and I talked about this, I think, a couple of episodes ago, where I was telling you how I had that feeling in my gut before that one client call.
Yes.
And he started off by saying, I have this pit in my stomach. I'm like, oh, that's where that is happening for me more and more and more. I had a client session where, I mean, for lack of a better, I don't want to sound too woo-woo here because it's kind of a surprise to me too. Maybe that's why my hands are sweating, because I'm starting to get vulnerable about stuff that I'm like not even sure how I'm supposed to talk about this out loud, much less in a public arena like live. But I'm with this client and she starts telling me some things that we had been talking about, but then all of a sudden it had to do with her family and different members of her family. And I said, all I can tell you is I feel like you're holding the very playbook that was designed for your grandmother and your mother. And she says, what do you mean? I said, you have your own playbook. You came in with your own playbook. And you're trying to operate from their playbook. And I said, I don't know if this sounds, I don't know which, because I didn't know your parents or your family, but I don't know which of this sounds like who. But one of your grandmother or your mother wants to say, put it down, it's not yours. And the other one wants to say, honey, it's time for you to realize you came to live your own life. And she just was like, because one of them was very distinctly her grandmother and one of them was very distinctly her mother. And I said, I don't know what that means, but what's coming through as your coach is that the reason that you keep feeling stuck is because you're trying to live your life based on someone else's playbook. And how many of us are doing that? Like just even in the enculturation from the outside world is you need to be, to be a good parent, you need to do this. To be a good girl or a good boy, you need to do this. I mean, we've been told that story so many times
Oh, wow.
that there's this larger swath, you know, that obviously covers all of us, right? So that's one of the things that I think we just kind of got dragged out of too, is suddenly I'm hearing people say, I need to do this for me. This feels right for me. They're coming more into their guts, their instincts.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like the right thing for me, right? I want to be true to the people I love, and I want to be true to my upbringing and all of it. I want to honor all of that, but I can't do it that way anymore.
Mm-mm.
I feel like I'm losing myself.
Yes.
And I feel stuck because I can't be anything other than who I am. And I realize that trying to play off of that playbook, as I use the language with this client, keeps me playing someone else's play and not my own. So that's definitely, we are emerging into a space that I think part of what's discombobulating about it is we've been so operating off of someone else's playbook. And suddenly we're getting this opportunity to start learning our own.
Your own play. Oh my goodness, that's so when I'm looking down, I'm writing, right? It's so come and experience life. Remember we talked about authenticity, that we're going to come back to that word, and operating on another person's playbook. I I spoke with someone this morning, and she goes, I went to a conference, a virtual conference, and the person had 900 plus people on there for $100 per head. And it was, I think it was a Suzanne Evans piece. She's good at what she does. I hear. I don't know her. Do you know her? You have heard about her? Okay, but anyway.
Yes, but I don't know her.
So it's good at what she does, but when you triangulate what she was saying, one was, she said, getting debt, use your credit card, buy my $20,000 program. Then the other was, I will uncover who you are and become that person, be purposeful. So whatever the other point on her triangle was, so you have the triangle, anything anybody says, triangulate it, right? 3 points. If those 3 points all point to the same direction, excellent. That thing is true, right? So, but when you triangulate hers, I'm hearing getting debt, improve yourself in debt. I'm like, if you are trying to improve someone, you're telling them getting debt, it's to your benefit because you're saying giving the money, right? So when you triangulate her, for me, from my viewpoint, I'm like, that's not great. So let's come down to triangulating ourselves. Don't execute someone else's playbook. Anytime you try to execute someone else's playbook, when you triangulate that particular action or truth, you will find a deficit somewhere on one of your points. And that deficit is an assurance that you aren't doing this thing the way you're supposed to do it. Look at, I heard a story of the lady who had a pan. I think you've heard this because it's common story. Every time a husband comes with fish, she would throw the large ones away and she would stay with the small. She'd take the large, keep the small, throw away. And people will come and say, but hold up, why are you throwing away the large ones? And she goes, the pan my mom gave me is this size, so I only can cook with this piece. And the guy goes, why not get a bigger pan? So when you triangulate that piece, and it even goes directly with your story about grandma did it or mom's playbook, she's going with the playbook of the past that says small pan, small fish. And she looks at the big fish and says, I'm not going to use this one because I can't cook in this particular pan. Why don't we change the pans, right? Executing the playbook. When I think about my granddad and my dad, the way they did certain things, and I say to myself, I want to keep the legacy. Say my granddad was a writer, my dad a plumber. However, both of them tackle things systematically, a place for everything and everything in its place. Now, I can come and say, I want to be a plumber or I want to be a writer, but I'm not any one of those things. I thought I was an engineer, but now I find out I'm somebody who can extract greatness from people. But
That's an engineer.
but exactly my point. So when I sit back and say I have to be my dad a plumber or I have to be a writer, I'm putting myself in a box that says to myself, that's who I have to be, but that's not where I'm at my zone of genius. Remember that? But here is where people have to think about this. I am my dad. I am my grandfather. The mere fact that I'm using the identical principle of a place for everything and everything in its place. I'm using that process, that system as I engage in talking with people and helping people. I am at my zone of genius doing the identical thing they did, but in a different form. So allow yourselves to, and I'm talking to us and others who are watching, listening, allow yourselves to find the lowest common denominator of what your past was. Don't become your past because the form will change. The function remains the same. And extract that particular common denominator and use it in 2020 for who you want to become or who you are to become. Hmm. Hmm. I gotta
So
listen.
what I hear you saying, which I think is so profound, is we are meant to honor our ancestry and be ourselves, right? And that's what in this case with this client, the grandmother was just like, don't try to be me, I'm me. And I guess apparently she had that personality. She had
Correct.
that people didn't revere her as much as they feared her. She was tough. And so, but it was this, don't be me, I'm me. Don't try to take that from me. Be you. And that's what our ancestors want for us. They don't want us to live their lives. That was their life to live, right? They didn't, it's like any mother will tell you, any father will say this, I want more for my child than I had for myself, so we don't want them to be us.
Correct.
We want them to be them. And hopefully, and so I think that that's the key piece, is that how do we honor it? I'll tell you one thing that's come through a lot for me the last couple of weeks since the last time we talked was
Tell me.
by doing that, you talked about the shift in perspective and seeing things. I have been able to see other sides of stories in ways that have been profound. As I've shifted and really owned more of myself and my needs and my way of doing things, it's allowed me then, instead of trying to make people happy or trying to, come about things in a certain way that will meet people exactly from what I think they need, right? It's coming from who I am. And if that's what they need, they get to choose it. If that's what they don't need, they get to choose, to go a different direction. But I can actually see more clearly, right? When we're looking through our authentic lenses, we see more clearly. And what I've been seeing when I was trying to be a different way, I also was looking at things through a skewed lens when I was looking at others. I was not only skewing my own direct route of authenticity, I was skewing my authentic, clear vision. And so as soon as I righted myself, now lately I've just been like, oh, I totally see their point of view. I've been going back to past happenings, where I see exactly why this person played this role, or exactly why they did something a certain way that maybe at the time I didn't understand, that I can put myself in their shoes because I'm actually owning my own.
Traci
Right?
Waldman Philips. You can go home, girl.
Hi.
Oh my goodness. Oh no, you were still talking. Keep on talking. I butted in. Were you at the end of it?
That was, it's been so, it's happening so fast where all of a sudden a past thing will come up and I'm like, oh, because I am seeing it now fully I'm owning, and when we own ourselves, we own everything. We own our flaws. we own our greatness,
Yes.
we own our missteps,
Yes.
we own how we completely botch something up. It's like, oh my God, I totally own that. But we own it. Owning it is not about realizing it and cringing.
You just got a
Owning it
couple.
is
You just
about
got a couple.
realizing and
You just got a.
embracing it.
You just got a couple loves and likes coming popping off the screen here, sis. I just looked there and saw it. It's just pow, 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 pow. Yes, yes.
Hi, folks. Hi, folks.
Oh my goodness, Traci, you unfolded something for me just now. You unfolded something for me. That's why being authentic and sometimes vulnerable is so important. Mm. And here's what you did for me. Hi, ay, 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 ay. Ah, okay, okay, okay. Here goes. There you go. Raise the roof, sis. Raise the roof. Um, you can never become, I can never become Wulwyn. Wulwyn is, I'm a vulnerable person. And when I say vulnerable, I, if I do something, I'll come to you and say, hey, I did it. And back in the day, if did something crazy or foolish, I would go to my mom and tell her, Mom, I would report myself. I would report myself. I would just, Mommy, I didn't. She'd be like, gosh, this kid is silly, huh? I'm gonna spank him still. But oh, Mom, I did this. She's like, oh, really? You did? Yeah, I did it. But that was me showing that I had no secrets in a way, right? I would tell it and say it and be like, oops, I said it. And only also because my mouth ran, I would just be talking and then boom, and say, oh, I said it, boom. But here's the deal. I have to be that person in 2020. Because if I'm not that person, if I don't, I have to relate whatever I hear to what I know, what has happened in my past. But if I keep shut, the full engagement, the full conversation doesn't happen. I hide behind something and somebody, I engage someone and I put a fake, or not even a fake, I don't want to use fake because some people aren't fake. People just close their mouths on something they're supposed to say or express, which will unfold something for the other person, which will then unfold for yourself. Like you talking today on this thing, and I'm saying, oh my goodness, I can't go fake or not vulnerable, or I can't express my true story and expect a true story to come back to me, because we come back to physics. It connects. Equal and opposite reaction. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And this is what physics is in our interaction. When I come with my action of not showing my true self, the equal and opposite reaction is the person is not going to come and show their true self, or I will not understand their true self.
You got it. You got it. And we live in that until we can come out of it, right? Until we choose to come out of it. I mean, my client was going on today and he's like, God, all this, I really want to work. I'm working very hard not to be in these situations. He says, I got in this, in where he slipped back into old patterns that I was talking about. He says it was when it just kept hitting me that it's like, why do I keep attracting these people who just abuse me and don't honor what I'm actually trying to do for them? And I said, well, where are you doing that to yourself? Because other people are a mirror for you. So if you're having people show up and they're just giving you a hard time all the time, where are you giving yourself a hard time? Where are you beating up on yourself if you have nothing but problems that keep coming at you, to solve? Where are you constantly looking internally at all the problems? Because what we focus on is what grows in our lives. We get more of, right? It's just that mirror. It's like, so if I'm not showing up authentically, and I'm getting frustrated because nobody around me, or at least as we're saying, in my mind's eye, the way I perceive it,
Yep.
Nobody's showing up authentically with me. Nobody's meeting me where I am. I mean, I know with myself, one of my biggest core wounds, which most of us have, is this
Mm-hmm.
feeling of abandonment. You know, when you
Mm.
finally open your heart and you finally give love, and then suddenly the person goes away. And I realize it's like, where was I abandoning myself? Where
Wow.
have I been abandoning myself every single time? Where have I not been showing up fully in the relationship? And then I wonder, I blame them for leaving, but it's like, it's because I wasn't fully showing up. I wasn't communicating my true feelings. I wasn't being who I was trying to be, either the perfect girlfriend or the perfect best friend or the perfect whatever, instead of just being me. And I then wonder why they're gone. It's because I was abandoning me. They abandoned me because I was abandoning my authentic self. They wanted to be in true relationship and I wasn't providing that. And so,
Wow. Wow. So mine is, you say abandonment. Mine is, I don't want to be wrong. I I I I want to be right. So how do I reverse engineer that? It means that, am I critical? I'm critical of others when they do wrong. Is that how that looks? Because remember you said, see, this is it's tricky, so we'll have to peel it. You said, so abandonment, and you're not bringing it in, and then true friendships or true relationships are not happening. Mine is, I don't want to be wrong, which means when I engage with someone, am I critical when someone is doing something wrong, which the person is looking and saying, man, you too critical, and they leave. Right? Is that what that looks like in that same scenario as yours, what you had described?
so the way I'm hearing it is authentically you're a person who analyzes. You know, Jenny Midgley said to me in my interview with them for Girls Who Do Stuff, she says, you present yourself as a person who enters the room and you're assessing everything.
Mm-hmm.
And where I think most of my life I felt that people thought I was judging them, like in reality I wasn't judging. I was curiously trying to figure out who they were from a good standpoint. Like I was looking for their
Mm,
good goods, not their bad goods. But I
gotcha.
think the more I saw, and the more I was worried about protecting myself, because being right is one of the 4 things that are important to ego. It's being right, looking good, being comfortable, and being safe. So if we're
Mm,
having any of those conversations with ourselves, it's an ego protection
correct.
conversation, right?
Correct.
I would say dig deeper, and what are you trying to protect yourself from?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's going to be the core reason for why you want to be right. You know, because it's a
Correct.
protection reaction. It's the symptom, it's not the cause.
Correct. Which
So that's where it's like, what are you trying to protect by being right? What are you safeguarding yourself from in your
mine, see, so I can speak this. Mine was failure. I didn't want failure. I protected myself from failure. So in order to not fail, I have to be right, right? So I don't, if I'm wrong, I failed. But I've given myself we talked about this the other day, compassion, right? And this breakthrough came 3 years ago, where I gave myself the compassion to be wrong. That's why we're on this talking today. That's why we can come here, because guess what? I could be wrong on everything I said here today. Like, who cares? I'm wrong. Okay, I am wrong. I will do right next time. I have compassion on myself now. I think I have matured to 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 not have the lens of the world. Ah, wow, we're coming back just full circle to everything we're saying today. I have the maturity to take my own playbook, run my mistakes, run my plays, get my mistakes, look at them, replay them by making right, and not doing it based off what Tom, Dick, or Harry perceives Wulwyn or Traci to be. Mm,
love
mm,
that. And you know why I love this so much? Not only for you to have that space of realization, but this, talk about full circle. So one of my clients sent me a text yesterday.
okay.
And I don't know, do you know who Ray Dalio is?
Ray Dalio.
So
No.
he wrote this book called he's actually ranked as one of the top 100 most influential people. he wrote this cute little cartoon book for business about the principles of success.
Okay.
And I'm going to actually share in our chat, I'm going to share the link to the 30-second video of the highlights of this book, because it's like the key principles to success. And he talks all about this very thing, all about, he made a name for himself because he, in the financial world, he was kind of this guru. And back in the, I think he said in the 1980s, he made a prediction that we were going into a depression.
Okay.
And he was very vocal about it. And he would show up and give talks and show stats and why he believed this and all that. And he says he wasn't able to see, there was, you know, because we all have blind spots. He wasn't able to see some key principle things he had left out that would have made what he was presenting completely incorrect, but he didn't want to see that. You know, he took off, he wanted to be right. Yeah. And so he only saw what would allow him to be right. And he presented that and he says, talk about massive failure. He says, you know, this is what I was known for in the world. And then when he says, not only did it not happen, for the next 18 years, we had one of the biggest bull markets that we've ever had, right? 18 years of just straight up when it came to economy. And so people are like, oh, this dude doesn't know his stuff. And he had to close his company. He says down to, well, he didn't close it. He went back to just himself.
Correct.
But he talked about these mistakes and how it rectified his relationship with failure. Do you know how many times male clients have said to me when I say, what is most important to you? Their answer is winning. Winning. Yep. Not failing, not losing, winning. Right? In other words, succeeding, not failing.
Correct.
And because I think that as our culture has provided this in cultural, you know, kind of indoctrination with men, that you have to provide, protect, and serve. Those are your jobs. That it doesn't leave you in a position where you can fail. Correct. When you're providing, protecting, and serving, not only yourself, your family, and the world, you don't have the luxury to fail. You must win.
You must.
This is what we've set many men up to feel. And so, you know, it doesn't surprise me that their answer is winning. But then what happens when you don't? Because men focus on pie and women focus on cake. You know, men in the arena of business and showing up in the world focus on P, which is performance, I is image, and E is exposure. Right? Not only what can I expose myself to that will give me the edge.
Gotcha.
But how much am I going to try to hide being exposed in areas I don't want that are going to affect my performance and image? Correct. Right? So men run around trying to make sure that the PIE is taken care of, right? So they can provide, protect, and serve. And again, thank God things are shifting, but it's been like this for so long that with this awareness, we can be, like you were saying, more compassionate and gentle with ourselves. Women have cake is theirs, you know? So this is connection and conversation, right? Communication, aptitude and attitude, kinetics, how we connect from a core, on a core level, and empathy. Right. So when women first entered the workforce, you know, compassion and conversation, there was no room for that because everybody was eating pie. Correct. Right. And so, you know, women come in and that's why they say, oh, she lost her femininity as soon as she became a top-notch CEO because she had to be like a man. Yes. Why do women feel like they have to be like men and be eating pie when what they have to bring to the table that's of most value is cake? Somebody else's playbook. Right. Right. So we get that. I mean, all of this is so fantastic because once we start to unpack it and see it, we're far less critical of ourselves, you know, because again, we don't have language for it. We're just like, oh, this isn't working. I don't like that. I want to win. I don't want to lose. And what the heck is that? You know, and we start to then dance with it, to engage with it because it's there to show us parts within ourselves that we're supposed to embrace. Correct. We're not supposed to be constantly disengaging ourselves from ourselves, right? You can't own who you are if you're constantly disengaging from aspects of you. Like you're taking off your, you know, like. That's true. I love myself, but I'm totally I love myself. I hear this from women. I love myself, except I love who I am, but then I take my clothes off and I don't like what I look like, you know, or I loved my smile, but I don't like my teeth. Or I mean,
Correct.
anytime someone gives themselves a compliment, it always is immediately followed by
Um,
something they don't like.
that's true. That's true. Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Pie and cake. I like that. So, but here's the deal. The party is even better with both of those things, with the pie and the cake. And that's why my brother, I was talking to my brother a couple, a month or two ago, and the topic came up. I said, man, I'm finding I am collaborating with women more. And it's just a point. This I collaborate with women. I do not. I, I don't know, men. It's not that I don't like men. Hey, no pun intended, right? It's there you go, there you go. There's just something more at the table with women. And he says, man, he said, look, women have a completely different look at the identical thing you're looking at. They have a completely different view. They understand it at an angle that when you put your view with theirs, it becomes complete. And I go, whoa, okay. And now this brings the pie and cake. Do you know what it looks like when empathy and kinetics and aptitude and compassion, communication mixes with performance and image and what was the E? Exposure, right? When all of these things mix together at at the proper levels, that is breakthrough. That's what breakthrough looks like. But most times we want to pie it out, or we want to kick it out, or pie and kick doesn't mix. And then we come to the conversation again of inequities. If we can look at each other and not say you bring less to the table and you'll be paid less, I bring more. Why not? Let's just have equity in this thing. That without cake, the pie isn't gonna be good. The pie is gonna be overexposed. With too much cake and no pie, it's a kumbaya moment and da da da.
It's too sweet. It's
It's
like,
too sweet. Yes, yes. But then we want the powers that be want to say, you know what, cake women, you're not bringing much to the table, so you know what, underpaid. And it's time to change this stuff. It's time to change the narrative on on women getting the short end of the stick. It's time to change the narrative on people of color. It's time to change the narrative on just all these inequities, because believe it or not, I'm on a soapbox and I'm going to stay there for a second. You you cannot, just what we stated here, you cannot gain the complete outcome, you cannot gain what the other person brings to the table if you're blocking that which they're bringing. Did I make sense with that?
oh my gosh, yes. So it's about the fact that there is a seat at the table for everyone. I believe if we're here, it's because we're meant to be here, right?
Yes.
And that puzzle piece that is that seat that belongs to that person or that type of person is necessary at the table for the dialogue, for the outcome of whatever we're trying to create at this table, for more diverse conversation at the dinner table, like for all of it, we need each piece to be able to take its place within the puzzle.
Mm.
If one piece tries to take up the whole puzzle, it's like you can't. You're a one piece puzzle, which is really boring. And I mean, and I don't know about you, if you're a puzzle person. We love to do puzzles, especially during holidays. We have it on the dining room table, and then we just come at different intervals and put
Yeah.
pieces together. We like the ones with the most parts, the most puzzle pieces, because it's the biggest challenge,
Mm-hmm.
and the most variation,
Yeah.
which means that it's hard to tell where it gives challenge. We want challenge as human beings, but if we're not in diversity, we don't have challenge. And so I think it's not. I said to my dad the other day. So my dad and I have always kind of typically done this, And I called him for Father's Day, and we got into one of our debates. And I said, Dad, I just really want to point something out to you, because typically I'm pretty strong. And so he just like kind of backs off the conversation. But my dad is very intelligent and very well read and very adds a lot to a conversation.
Yep.
I said, Dad, can I just tell you how much I love our debates? I said, it stimulates my mind and you challenge me to grow. Yeah. And he says, I never, it's like it never really, I think, occurred to him that it wasn't confrontational.
Correct.
It was conversational at the level that actually was growing me. And as my father, to be able to bring that kind of growth and development to my life, I'm like, I look at this, it's like Katya. I said, my friend Katya from France was like, I hate that I can't use the word argue, which in French, argue is to debate. And in France, that's something that they thrive on. They thrive on these debates because it's a challenge to different ideas and ways of thinking and perspectives, and it makes us grow. Wow. And so, but she says here is you argue, and people look at it as confrontational and negative. And when really that's what we need to learn to lean into. She says, you could have a heated argument in France and walk away as best friends. Yes. Here, it's like people get offended and they unfriend you, and and it's like, no, I'm just bringing a different perspective. I still love you. It has nothing to do with how I feel about you. But I think that's what people tend to do, is they line it up linearly, that either you're with me or you're against me. And that's what we're being challenged to work beyond, I believe.
Wow. I'm going to go do a nice little segue here. My wife and I, Verlin, been knowing her since the 80s, junior high, right? And we were never on the same side. Never on the same side. If she said it was black, I'm saying it's white. She said it was red, I would say it's yellow. And it wasn't because I wanted to be against her. It's just how we are. And to see that, we've been married 20 years and when we talk, there are a few things we are straight on, right? So God, raising the children, the important things, right? But things that she's talking, she has to come and bring her viewpoints in, and I have to listen. And almost, now I'm gonna admit it here on camera, every single time that I listen and add the cake to my pie, I turn out looking like the best thing ever since sliced bread. And it behooves us, 158, it behooves us to make space for the pie and the cake. I gave you last words, and you do what you want to do here, Traci.
I love that. So I'm going to do a shout out for my Southern grandmother who's passed on, but she used to be an incredible cook, baker, cook, like just amazing. And she used to make my favorite dessert was this pie and cake thing, right? So she took pecan pie, because she's from the South, right? From Georgia. She made it on this thick brownie-like cake. It was like a tort, like a really rich, dark chocolate tort.
Okay.
And she would bake the pie part on top of the cake. And it was, I liked her fudge stuff and I liked her pecan pie, but when she put those two together, there was something that was my favorite dessert that she used to make. I loved that. I don't even know what it's called. I need to go back and find that. But I just, as you talk about pie and cake, I was like, oh my God, that totally reminds me of, there was something about the density and it's just, again, it makes things more whole, right? It creates a deeper experience. And it allows each of us to show up authentically, because when we're trying to do pie, when we really want to do cake, or we're trying to, incorporate, nowadays we've got people who identify as male and female, right? As their pie and cake, right? They're like that pie cake thing that my grandmother made.
Correct.
And I believe it's to reflect back to our society that that's the way we need to kind of start looking, is how can we integrate, not separate,
Yeah.
not polarize,
Yes.
and say you're either right or wrong, you're either with me or against me, you know, I'm right, you're wrong, or you're wrong and I'm right. It's not about that. It's about what we all bring, because that is the piece that is the larger experience that we're all meant to have.
Traci Phillips, once again, Waldman Philips, because your dad will be listening, I think, and be, say my name, doing the
Say my name.
It's been another great waiting for you to talk to you for another 2 weeks and being with our guest. I truly appreciate it, Traci. Today has been excellent. I don't know, what's your choice? Stretch, embracing change. What would you call this particular episode today?
The authentic stretch.
Yeah.
You know, like we talked about, like, how do we stretch ourselves to, because again, it's not just about us, it's about when we can do it for us, we start to allow it for others.
Excellent.
So,
Authentic stretch. And that's what it's going to be called. And this is where I speak the outro, because you didn't bring the outro. Next week, please bring it so you can do one and I can do the other. It is our honor and pleasure to bring you these bi-weekly discussions. You can find a playback of all our Eavesdrops conversations by following us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Traci with an I and Phillips with one L and Wulwyn, Wulwyn Porte, Porte. And we also have this on YouTube, the YouTube channel, Eavesdrop Live, where we want you to listen in and repeat what you hear, speak up and live out loud. Thank you and have a good one. Bye-bye.